93.7 The Ticket. Gather round. This is the Ticket Water Cooler, brought to you by Culligan of Lincoln.
You need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here.
Yeah. Coming at you live from the Coppel Chevrolet GMC studios in the heart of Lincoln, America.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
On air and online at theticketfm.com. Here are your hosts, Jake Bakoven and Nathan Brennan.
A lot of guys being dudes today here on the Ticket Water Cooler as we've got the guys in from the happy hours. They let us sit in on their show, so we'll let them do the same. It's a big day today in the college sporting landscape, and of course for Nebraska, it has its effects there too, as UCLA and USC reports are about 90% of the way set to join the Big Ten by 2024, and just changes the way that college football is as we know it. I think Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC was kind of a prelude to this, and there had to be some type of sort of counterpunch from the Big Ten eventually. And the big fish out there was USC and Notre Dame that are left. And the Big Ten got one of them in USC, UCLA tag teaming along with them to come along. Huge news for Nebraska in the Big Ten. Once again, Rico, Nick Sainert, and of course Nate in here with me. You guys, what is your initial reaction? Was it just shock to the news?
Yeah, for the most part, it was just kind of we saw the update on our phone and we were just like, what is happening? Like, is this a joke? Like, are they just talking? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm so confused, but at the same time, excitement because, man, that sounds like a lot of fun.
I don't think you guys is my mic on. I don't think you guys want to know what I thought. So, meh.
Why am I worried about USC? It's not being worried.
Not that you're worried.
It's excited. Yeah, like USC and UCLA to the Big Ten.
Let's talk
college
about this.
Football, as you know it, is changing.
Yeah,
the landscape
that's what I'm most worried
about.
That's what I'm most worried about.
With this move, it's almost not just a worry. It could be the breakaway from the NCAA. I mean, this is the two super conferences.
That's what I'm more worried about.
Nathan's just mad because he knows for a fact Virginia Tech is going to get lost out of the shuffle.
Honestly, I'm worried about the ACC in general. Again, like I said on the happy hour, if you can keep Clemson, Florida State, and Miami, you're fine. The problem is, I guarantee right now after this, the SEC is in Clemson's year. They say you come here, you will have more money than God, which they will. Yeah. Like Clemson, because you have to think, Clemson, outside of Alabama, in the past 10 years has been the best college football program in the country. And they played in the ACC, which has had I don't even know. It's back and forth seasons. You have some seasons where there's a lot of good teams, some where there's a lot of tough teams, and it's not very good. But
the brands haven't stuck up with Clemson, the Miamis, the Florida State,
and they haven't. And if Clemson makes the next move, it will be a free for all. And I think we go to the two major conferences.
So with that,
ACC can't hang.
With that in mind, I do want to kind of dive into the conversation. I think we should dive into the conversation of who could the Big Ten go out and go get still, because they're not done. The same guy, John Wilner, who broke this news earlier today, just tweeted out, don't assume the Big Ten is done. So obviously the SEC is kind of scrambling, right? We've talked about that. And the Big Ten's not done. So who is out there that's sexy enough that the Big Ten would be interested in? Oregon's the first one, Notre Dame. Who else?
The thing is, you guys keep bringing up Notre Dame. I don't see Notre Dame making a move. I think Notre Dame will be one of the last schools if they do. The NBC contract. They don't have to.
Yeah.
The conferences have to come to them.
But as we just found out, though, we were supposed to find out the Big Ten media rights deals on Memorial Day a month ago to today, exactly a month ago, and we have not heard a single whisper. So if the NBC's been talked about being a player in the Big Ten's media rights deal, so if the Big Ten has Notre Dame, is on the phone with Notre Dame, then the media rights deal, it'll be a smooth transition because the NBC will just be able to handle Notre Dame and the Big Ten.
When is that NBC contract over? That's the big question.
I was going to say, what comes first, the Big Ten announcing a media rights deal with NBC being included, or the Big Ten announcing Notre Dame's joining the conference?
I just think if you head to two super conferences, you can't still have Notre Dame sticking out there as an
no way, because then you talk about playoff chances at zero.
Yeah,
zero.
None. And I mean, with the conferences expanding to 16 teams or more, do you have non-conference games? I mean, this is how big this is. It expands to just college football as you know it. Mike is completely different, obviously already, but is just changing. And I've said for years, I think that it is headed toward an SEC Big Ten takeover based on the money that is involved in those TV contracts and in those conferences, the level of care. And now we're seeing that and that's what kind of leaves these other teams out there. And so if you are the Big Ten, I think that ultimately they will go and get a Washington or an Oregon or some of those teams and continue to poach apart the Pac-12 just to have some sparring partners out there in the West Coast for USC and UCLA. But, I mean, the other option is if you really want to compete with the SEC is don't let them get Clemson. Don't let them get Florida State. Become a national brand and go south.
But how do you as the Big Ten offer more money or more stability to Clemson than the SEC can?
That's why I think
you're about to have the biggest
stability is no longer. I mean, SEC and Big Ten have stability. I mean, they are the future of college football.
But you can also offer. You're not going to spend as much in travel. You're not going to have to go. I mean, you have South Carolina right there. You know, all the other. I mean, you're South. You're right there. You're in SEC country. You just happen to be in the ACC.
That's the thing, though, that I think the ACC hangs on. Just because of the sheer fact, we look at the schools that are moving, it's in waves of 2. And the ACC luckily has 3 national brands, arguable blue bloods.
Clemson, Florida State, Miami.
Florida State, Miami. So you have
none of them
3.
blue bloods, but go ahead.
2 of
But
Miami.
In that second tier,
Miami.
There's 8 blue bloods, and 4 of them are now in the Big Ten, and 3 of them are in the SEC and Notre Dame. I mean, if you ask traditional college football fans and you look at
we don't need to go
into
this again.
Well, I'm just letting you know those are the major
I
brands.
would consider Miami in that group.
Second tier brands, yeah, Miami since the 80s, certainly, but not all together.
I'm saying though, it's been in waves of 2. It's been clusters. So if you the thing that the ACC has going for them is that you have 3. So if you can manage to keep those 3 together and maybe pull like, I don't know, a Stanford, like that's the thing is the question is, and I think that Notre Dame, if push comes to shove, would go ACC. If the
ACC, you mean the SEC?
No, the ACC.
I don't think
no way. Not with the way that
Nate, I'm sorry, but I don't know with the ACC. I mean, the Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-12 now are just left with spare parts and some major brands, but not as big as what you have in the SEC and the Big 10. That's why I wonder that's why I think it's headed towards 2 major conferences with upwards of 25, 30 teams or whatever.
You still have Clemson though, and then that's the big kicker because, like I said, they're the most prestigious, the best team over the past decade other than Alabama.
But in reality, is Notre Dame going to want to go to somewhere where Clemson is at? Or somewhere where it's Bama, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, or Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Nebraska. Like the thing is, you want to go to a conference that has 1 blue blood or 2 if you want to count Miami into there, or if you want to count Clemson in there, or do you want to go somewhere that has 3 or 4?
We've seen shuffling of the conferences before, though. Obviously, never to this proportion. I mean, this is legitimately shaking college football to its core. And Notre Dame has always stood put in being independent. Is there any chance that they just stay independent? If they can sign their own TV deal, though,
it screws them.
Does it, though? Because everyone said that when Notre Dame stayed independent and they went to the playoff, and it never did. Notre Dame was still getting the playoff.
Yeah, but that's
so if you still schedule Michigan, USC, 5 ACC schools, you still will get in.
If you've got the super conferences, they're not playing out of conference.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
I don't think it'll be an all conference schedule.
I think because you have 30 teams in a conference, you're not going to have 25 teams in a conference.
That's where you're going to have to scrap divisions, and you're going to play 3 permanent opponents or 2 permanent opponents every year.
I told my dad to tune in because he went to Notre Dame and he's always stood put with them being independent. So I'm curious to hear what he has to say.
I seriously think that if Notre Dame, and we got people on the text line saying that, I add Iowa State realistically because that's more plausible.
That's not sexy.
But here's exactly, and if you're the Big Ten, hold on,
need to be sexy anymore.
I think it does. When you got your pick,
it needs to be sexy.
No, when you got your pick of the litter right now, and you're saying, all right, listen, bingo. Because everybody's saying that we need to, worry about flights for fans or flights for the kid or for the athletes. This just showed that they don't care.
Well, throw it out. It's pro football now.
Exactly.
It's pro league.
They
when you play coast to coast. And when about people that travel, kids are going to love to travel. I mean, or at least if you give them enough time. The other thing is, I don't know. this is all like there's so many ramifications on from this down from football. This is all football money. All this is being done based off football.
Right, yeah,
That's why I still think if you break away from the NCAA, do it as a football league, and then keep some sort of semblance of what you've had with a lot of the non-revenue sports where you can still travel and keep that somewhat regional. Basketball's got its whole. I mean, they're a revenue generating sport, but it's the complete all the blue bloods in basketball are being left behind, and I don't even know what that leaves. Like the Big East or the ACC in basketball might be fantastic a few years from now, but they don't have any teams in the major conferences of football.
Creighton to the Big Ten.
So here's the thing. So what's interesting though, and I know we have a phone call. What's interesting is you sit here and go, all right, who could Nebraska get? People are forgetting about Arizona State. But then it's like this is where you need a pick to be sexy, right? Because we just said that the Big 12, you can even put maybe the ACC into there. Now the Pac-12 specific or especially are just spare parts, right? It's what's going to get them to at least be able to compete with some of these other teams that are in the lower parts of these super conferences, right? So if you're the Big 12 or you're the Pac-12 or not Pac-12, if you're the Big 12 or even maybe the ACC, you go out and get Arizona State. You try to, if you're the ACC, you try to gear it. You're in the ears of Oregon. You're in the ears of Washington. Because geography does not matter at all. But you're just trying to keep up. You have to actually understand right now. If you're the ACC or the Big 12, the Big 12 thought they made a great move in adding UCF, BYU, Houston. They thought they were in Cincinnati, right? But now you're like, well, bleep. We got two super conferences with all these massive blue bloods in there. We're not going to be able to compete, but we want to be. We need now. We're in a situation where we need to get to third. We need to get to the third best conference in college football. So it's like, all right, what's the sexiest option left?
You guys should read what my dad said real quick, though. He says, Indy will never join the SEC because the academics aren't high enough. The ACC academics are good enough for Notre Dame. With Notre Dame, any conference affiliation has to consider academics, which is true, which is always been. And that's just academic standards. Big Ten is an option for Notre Dame, but Notre Dame prefers the recruiting geography of the ACC.
Everywhere can recruit, though. You can recruit to everywhere with Huddle, with social media. You can figure out
with Rutgers and Maryland out there.
You can figure out recruiting hotbeds, but just like Nebraska's going to need to get into California or the West Coast.
But it's still going to be different based on the games you're going to play. So if you're Notre Dame and you want to recruit the South, but you don't play any games in the South, it's going to be more difficult.
You're right.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it still does geography. Correct. Regardless, as minimal as it is now, still plays a factor.
Yeah, well, if we're going in groups of two, Notre Dame, if you're so worried about that, why don't you just get in the ear of Clemson? Just bring them along with you to the Big Ten.
If the Big Ten gets Clemson and Notre Dame,
it's done.
It's over.
It is two conferences, and it's over.
I will run out of this studio.
It is a free for all.
All right, we got a phone call.
Jeremy on the phone.
Jeremy. All right, Jeremy, you're on the Honda of Lincoln hotline. How you doing today, Jeremy?
Jeremy!
Hey, sure Jeremy's on the line.
Jeremy was on the line.
Jeremy, call back, Jeremy.
Sorry about that, Jeremy. Busy day. Axel Foley asked, has Kevin Warren slightly redeemed himself for the last couple of COVID seasons? What's interesting now is Big Ten Media Days is in a little less than a month.
Yeah.
And this will all be finalized. And he's going to walk up to the podium like, yo, I'm big man on campus here.
But
he better not screw this up, though.
Exactly.
This is a big moment for the Big Ten.
The disappointing news of all this is that the Big Ten wasn't like on the forefront of doing this. This was UCLA, and USC's idea more so than the Big Ten.
It fell into their laps.
And the Big Ten first of all, I guess that handshake alliance agreement's out the window.
Yeah. Well, I think you got to.
But it is sad because this is what the writing's on the wall, and that's what I was waiting for the Big Ten to make a move like this because they are, yes, the SEC is kind of taking over college football, but they can be the other benefactor. They can be the AFC to the NFC. And they kind of haven't fought as hard as they've needed to. Luckily, the brains out there, USC and UCLA, said, all right, well, we'll do it.
Well, I can't really get on Kevin Warren too much for not moving the needle on this because he's too worried about the television rights right now.
Exactly, but
trying to get more money for the schools. And, you're trying to get more money from the schools for the schools with your television rights. You're not worried about going out and getting more teams. Once you get the television rights done, then you can go get more teams. But with with those two teams reaching out to the Big Ten saying, hey, we want to join, that helps Kevin Warren to be like, okay, Fox, CBS, whoever the heck else wants
Because
television
it's all
rights in the
media
Big Ten.
rights.
Yeah.
That's what's
Whoever else
carry
wants media
this.
rights in the Big Ten,
Well-
guess what? We just got the LA market. Like, what's up?
Exactly. And that's the biggest thing is, I know, Rigo, you don't like the New York discussion.
It's not.
So you can just put the two. You have two of the largest media markets, Chicago and LA.
Northwestern Chicago's Big Ten team.
Chicago is the headquarters of the Big Ten, Big Ten
Shout out to
headquarters.
Evanston.
It's Big Ten headquarters, Chicago.
Well, this is
Yeah.
another thing, and the texter brings this up, which is a good point, and another thing that'll help the ACC's chances. It says it'll help in basketball too.
Yeah.
You got ACC for all that it is in football. It is primarily dominant in basketball.
Well,
I mean, you
so-
have the Dukes, the North Carolinas. Those teams aren't going to want to jump to the SEC surely because of basketball. Because Duke couldn't give a damn less about football. But I'm telling you right now, that is a brand in basketball that you really
That's
don't want
true.
to ruin.
That's
at
true.
all.
So here's the thing:
I don't think it would
is
hurt you if
somebody-
somebody to the SEC if you're Duke because you've got a Florida that's really good. You've got
Basketball is far
Alabama
more
on their
regional.
way
Though.
up.
Basketball is far more
That is
regional than
true.
college
That
football.
is true.
Far more regional.
So here's the thing: somebody on the text line says Maryland versus UCLA is about to be the dumbest thing ever. Not in basketball.
That'll be
not
awesome.
in women's basketball.
The
not
fact
in
that Michigan
like,
State and UCLA are going to have to play each other is so much.
Like, that's the
they
thing.
have to play each other is so much fun.
So this thing, so it was announced that all sports are transferring over to the Big Ten except beach volleyball.
Darn it.
So
Why is that?
I don't know.
Dang
Well,
it.
it's
You
just,
mean to tell me
Nebraska
they
just
play-
started beach
This is
volleyball.
garbage.
They have sand courts in their
Well,
volleyball complex.
and just to give you
An
stats,
advantage.
Nebraska's beach volleyball team has played USC's beach volleyball team 10 times, lost all 10.
Oh, okay. Well,
But
maybe it's a
they've
good thing.
but they've beaten UCLA the only time they faced.
This is a good question by David. He says, "Do super conferences kill bowl games?"
Have bowl games been alive
games-
outside of the New Year's Six?
Yeah.
I mean,
bowl games have
to
been
some schools, to
a group of
To
five.
Nebraska.
to the group of
to
five,
to
to
not
group of
super
five.
conference.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
it
could
does.
actually reignite them a
Oh,
little bit
yeah.
when you have if you don't play each other in the regular season, you're only playing your conference, which is now 2 super conferences, and then you have all the teams play each other at the end across conferences. That could reignite it a little.
It's gonna be
bit.
really weird when you see the Big Ten logo on USC's field, the Coliseum,
I didn't even think about that.
or when they're like a Big Ten conference night game
Well,
and,
then-
the sun
so
is out.
that's-
It's Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That's what the texter meant. I misinterpreted. They said Maryland versus UCLA about to be the dumbest thing ever. They were talking about a time difference thing, not the actual matchup.
Oh, I tweeted it out. I
That's
said,
gonna be
give
interesting,
Give me UCLA at Rutgers at 11 a.m. and then Maryland at USC at 8 when it's still light
Yeah.
out in California.
Yeah.
Nice.
Both
We're
teams
gonna have
will
to
start
stop
like 8.
getting up late or staying up.
Michael
late, I
Bruntz
suppose.
is set. Michael Bruntz has been watching Pac-12 games for the longest time, so he's good.
Yeah, no, I'm in. I'm watching
But-
Link or USC.
What do you guys think about the basketball argument, though? Do you think that's what keeps the ACC alive? Because the ACC
I
is
don't
built
think so.
on basketball.
But it can
I
be
don't-
the problem is it can be as alive as the Big East.
I was
You
saying
know,
if the
it
ACC
can
wants to
dominate-
build
it can
themselves up on
dominate
basketball,
basketball.
That's a good point.
just inherit all of the Big East
the
schools.
thing is,
and those FCS football programs.
Kansas
Duke
might
and
be
North
left out in
Carolina-
all this. They could join the ACC in basketball.
Kansas.
Oh my!
rude.
Think about that: Duke versus Kansas, ACC basketball. Oh, that would be awesome.
ACC championship.
But that's the thing is, the Big East was yes, at the peak of its powers, the best conference in basketball. But you didn't have Duke, you didn't have North Carolina, and those schools.
Well, they didn't have
legitimately-
football teams.
right?
They didn't need them.
But these are two teams that pride themselves on basketball. When we talk about blue bloods, there's not even a discussion. Duke and UNC are at the very top, and they're gonna. This is gonna factor into their decision. For teams in the Big Ten, primarily it's gonna be football. But teams in the ACC, there's quite a few. NC State, you can probably throw into that grouping too. They're gonna prioritize basketball. So I don't know how that's gonna shuffle things up either. Because then if you do 2 super conferences in basketball, what does that mean for the NCAA tournament?
all
The NCAA
ACC
tournament looks different then.
do
Well, and it's
all
a huge
ACC teams prioritize basketball?
I would say a good portion of
Because I was just thinking the more southern schools, the Clemsons, the Florida States, the Miamis, I don't think they're prioritizing basketball.
Florida State, I would say does.
I think they're going to prioritize football.
Well, they would football opposed to basketball.
Yeah,
But I think the real kicker in all of this is the Duke and UNC
they're not going anywhere.
because they run college basketball and
Yeah.
they're going to have a big.
But they
say
don't-
on
You
how
know,
they
they'd be a
realize-
package deal then. That you talk about 2
Oh,
teams
those-
moving.
those
That's
two-
a good point.
If they move,
Maybe,
if one
guys,
of them
I'm sorry to tell you that lately, before this, the North Carolina has been rumored to the Big Ten before. Duke was never rumored to it. Football might destroy your basketball rivalries and your basketball conference in the ACC. It just depends on what the super conferences look like because you don't want to be left out of football money and TV money that the football conference side of it's going to do. That's why I say The part about this that I don't like is that it's just going to affect all these other sports where it doesn't really make sense because it's all going based off the football model.
Right.
Yep.
If North Carolina goes anywhere, I can't see them. I know you said that they've been rumored in the Big Ten. If they go anywhere, I can't see them leaving without Duke.
It's a package.
Because
it has
even,
to be.
even with the basketball thing, the Big Ten is a pretty damn good basketball conference. You bring in North Carolina and Duke.
That's
again,
why
just like with the
You,
football team,
you bring in UCLA and USC.
yeah, it's over.
But you know what's interesting though is David says Kansas goes to the ACC. That makes it really, really interesting because then you have far and away the best basketball conference out of anyone. If you're poaching Kansas, say they get Baylor too. Say you're the ACC and you take Kansas and Baylor, that gets really, really dicey. Really dicey.
And they
really
fit
quick.
right in with your football teams.
Exactly.
I just think this
Get it?
is
'Cause
There's a
suck.
path for the
They
ACC
suck.
to live. There's a path for the ACC to live. That's all you guys need
Is
to
that
know
what
about
you're
this.
cheering for more than anything, or do you want Virginia Tech to secure their future
I don't need-
and join the SEC or the Big Ten?
The Virginia Tech.
Would
they're-
you rather
they're screwed
Virginia
in all
Tech,
this?
Would you rather
regardless.
Virginia Tech join the Big Ten or the SEC?
Big Ten?
NC State's more
Big
of a Big Ten team than Virginia Tech is.
I agree.
Big Ten.
I don't know why.
I don't want to go to the
I like
SEC.
NC
I hate the SEC.
There's
Fine,
much,
Brock.
much more to break down.
I just
here.
want to know who the Big Ten's going to get. They're going to get 2 more teams.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if it even stops there. That's why this thing is such a big move.
Do they go 2 teams from the East, 2 teams from the West, or do they split?
We'll give you our best team.
Give
Wake
us-
Forest.
Clemson.
You can have them.
and Oregon.
Give us Clemson and Oregon.
We will give you Wake Forest and NC State.
As far apart as you can go. Give me Washington and Miami.
There you go.
What
Wouldn't
a
mind that. If UCF can play in the Big 12, then everybody can play. Anywhere.
Let's talk about playoff format also after this.
Yeah,
It has to.
Because how's
expand.
the playoff going to have to change?
It has to.
I want to do that this.
yeah, it does. Unfortunately. We'll take a quick break when we come back on the
Give us
Ticket
the
Water Cooler.
BCS National Championship.
We'll talk more about this big move coming up next.
Work, laundry, dishes. I was exhausted. I needed a vacation, but finding a way to pay for it, not so easy. Then I found it, a research study at Solarium. I searched the studies and found a perfect match for me. It was so easy. I earned cash for the study and booked that vacation. Plus, I made an impact on medical research. Find a study and sign up today at healthresearch.com.
You should consider the risks of the research before you agree to participate. MaxTan is celebrating 29 years with some Max-tastic birthday sales. Get 50% off unlimited tanning, sun, and spray with no contract and no sign-up. MaxTan celebrates 29 years with you with 4 Lincoln locations. Take your tan to the max at MaxTan.
2-1 count, and that's a deep drive into the gap. Smith rounding first base. It's a stand-up double.
Hey, Nick, speaking of doubles, did you know Wings and Rings has 2 ways to enjoy their next level food? Rico, we're in the middle of a game. The game can wait, Nick. One way is to stop by one of their Lincoln locations. They have 2 great locations at O Street, Meridian Park, and 40th and Old Cheney in Williamsburg Village.
You said 2 ways. What's the other way?
You can order online at wingsandrings.com.
Water heater gone? Call Bryant. The price you're quoted is the price you'll pay. And in most cases, same-day replacement. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. 467-1111.
Hi, Sean Callahan here of HuskerOnline.com, inviting you to join us here on 93.7 The Ticket every Saturday morning now in our new time. We're on from 8 to 9 with the weekly Husker Online radio show. We'll give you the latest in recruiting. We'll talk about what's going on with both football, basketball, and we'll probably share a few stories from the inside. It's every Saturday morning right here on 93.7 The Ticket. It's the Husker Online radio show from 8 to 9 a.m.
Football season will be here before you know it, and you can get ahead of everyone else with the first annual Evening with the Huskers event at Tavern 180 and Tanner's Bar and Grill. Join 93.7 The Ticket and Husker Online's Sean Callahan for an evening with current Nebraska football players and surprise guests as they preview the season ahead. Enjoy cocktail hour and a delicious Wagyu steak dinner, as well as an open bar for the duration of the event, all for just $199 per person. Click the logo for the event at theticketfm.com to sign up. Don't delay. This will fill up fast. Don't miss your chance to meet and greet with Husker football players at Tanner's Bar and Grill and Tavern 180 in Lincoln at 30th and Yankee Hill. Sign up today at theticketfm.com using the Evening with the Huskers banner. It's an evening with the Huskers to preview the 2022 Nebraska football season at Tavern 180 and Tanner's Bar and Grill at 30th and Yankee Hill. Presented by Husker Online and 93.7 The Ticket.
In today's day and age, people are trying to do more and more projects by themselves. That might be better on the wallet, but it can also lead to painful sounds like this. Ow! Poor guy, trying to do wiring all by himself. Let's have another listen. It's just not worth it. Don't hurt yourself or make things worse than they are already. For any of your electric needs, call Joe at Ambition Electric today at 402-217-3415 or go to ambitionelectric.com.
Hey, Steve. Welcome to Great Clips.
Great Clips asks, what's the difference between good and great?
Come on back and have a seat.
Good asks you what haircut you'd like.
I have all your details from last time. Would you like the same haircut today?
Great already knows. With Clip Notes, we save your haircut details so you can get the same thing as last time, every time. Download our online check-in app today. Great Clips. It's gonna be great.
Guys, let me tell you about Pharaoh's Extreme Body Shaping. I did their 10-week challenge, and I lost 36 pounds. I got stronger, I got fitter, I got healthier. Their proven method combines kickboxing, strength training, nutrition, and personalized coaching to set you up for success. The only thing you need to be asking is, why didn't I do this 10 weeks ago? The next challenge begins on July 9th, and you can join for half off by mentioning the ticket. Head to fxblincoln.com to learn more and join the 10-week challenge with Pharaoh's Extreme Body Shaping for 50% off.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old. But I am a camping influencer. You know what? I'll bet you $5. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Back to the Ticket Water Cooler. Brought to you by Culligan of Lincoln on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We're back here on the Ticket Water Cooler and a day that will live in, I don't know, infamy, maybe? I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. But a day that we'll remember as UCLA and USC package deal coming to the Big Ten. It's about 90% done. The move is under the works, but it's not quite signed, done deal. So we'll kind of see how that plays out in the remaining days. But it just leads to so many different conversations. Mostly that the college football, as you know it, is officially dead. It's going to get a major facelift, look completely different here in a few years. And that's what people have been saying the last few years, is that 10 years from now, you won't even recognize the sport. I think that for the most part, and I know some people are going to disagree, and you're going to have your nostalgic takes and all that stuff. And I'm right there with you. I like college football. 1998 is my prime year for college football. But in any case, it's going to look completely different. I think more of like an NFL model when we go to two major conferences. I hope that many of these brands aren't left behind, and it's going to be different. But most importantly, I think you're still going to have. It's still going to feel special. I don't care how you decide playoffs or whose conferences and what. When USC is taking on Ohio State in the Horseshoe, that's cool.
You know the problem in all of this, though. We can talk about the playoff because it's very interesting. You guys got to remember, college football is, for the most part, built around the academic year. And NFL is playing Super Bowl in February. If you switch to an NFL playoff format, do you only play 7-8 regular season games? Because you got to think your season is essentially going to be extended into February. You're going to be playing every week in the playoff. And right now the playoffs is just 2 weeks.
I don't know if you need to expand a whole lot more than what we're talking. Maybe eight teams.
8 or 12. You can't, but this is the thing, though. If you do that, what's the format? Do 4 teams get a bye? Do 2 teams? Because the NFL playoffs is long, guys. And if you're doing 2 super conferences, I think the most likely scenario is that you would have 7 teams on each side in a playoff, and that would be like an NFL-style format. And then your regular season would have to be shorter, wouldn't it? Or do you start the season earlier?
I was going to say maybe, but then you worry about the academic year.
And that's what normally, again, they've shown that they don't really care about
No,
at this point.
No. Yeah.
But normally it's built around the academic year as much as you possibly can. Is that just a thing of the past?
I think as you move forward, I think again we have to start focusing on college football as its own league. And I don't know that hasn't happened yet. There's been nothing in the movement there, but again, I think that there needs to be a breakaway from football and then the rest of the sports, because it's just too big at this point, and nothing proves it more than what's going on right now. So I think that needs to be an adjustment in the future. I also think conference championship games, do they still have? I mean, if you're going to have that big of a playoff with these big of conferences, is there room for that? You don't do that in the NFL. You just play, regular season games, crown little NFC East champions, but you might break into your own pods. Whoever's got the best record can get that. But do you need a conference championship game? Or, I mean, those are already with the playoff, and especially if you expand the playoff, kind of useless and almost just a sidestep for some teams because it doesn't benefit you to win them at times.
Here's the crazy thing. So David said this: get rid of the quote unquote preseason college games, the non-conference games, and it's essentially a 7 or 8 game season anyway. No more cupcake money games. That's an interesting part.
What do these small schools do?
Cupcake money games are huge, by the way, for everybody.
What does
those
small
schools?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like Louisiana Lafayette would get 1 point however many $1 million to come to Nebraska and get their butt whooped. Like that's what they got. Like that's
how they fund their
Troy can get that much money to come and win.
Troy can, that's why Troy came to Nebraska, then LSU the following year. That's why Tennessee Chattanooga goes to Alabama every year. They know they know it's going to be a 56-13 loss, but they're going to be making a lot of money.
It's going to fund their entire program for that season.
And so and David makes a good point. It's essentially a 7 or 8 game season anyway after the non-con games, and that's correct. But what happens to Cincinnati used to be that team. Cincinnati used to be one of those teams, and then it just slowly, it took Luke Fickell getting there, Desmond Ritter finding a diamond in the rough to get there, and Sauce Gardner and some other players. But UCF was an 0-12 program. And they're not a Power 5 team. And that's those teams get are obviously financially set better than a McNeese State would be. Or think about other teams, Idaho, Akron. You fund your whole athletic department.
But what you want with all those teams too, those teams always, what we've argued is, there's no chance that they can make the playoffs and all this and that, is that when you do have these two super conferences, I think you're going to have a league above the FCS and below the super conferences for the teams that get left behind in this race, and they will have their own thing. And we can watch that too, and maybe it will be kind of interesting there, and hopefully can kind of fund themselves. But these moves aren't made with the little guys in mind. These moves are made with the people that are in and going to make a lot more money and continue to make a lot more money. And grow and expand with the SEC and the Big Ten. I'm just fascinated to see if because you're a couple moves away. We've talked about the teams that are kind of standing in the way: Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame, Clemson, Miami, Florida State. If those teams join those other conferences, then it doesn't matter what you do. You're just one of those teams that's left on the outside. Do you try to formulate your own nationwide big conference that clearly doesn't have the names of the SEC in the Big Ten, and would they include your new conference in their plans moving forward? I'm not sure they do. Keep in mind also the SEC has had their own ideas of just doing their own championship, their own conference. So maybe, we all hope, or I guess the idea is the Big Ten and the SEC, as they establish these super conferences, agree with one another to meet together. They could just do it singularly. We could have college football just split and have different champions that way, which would really be somewhat nonsensical. But everybody's got to come together and agree on this in the end.
The BCS kind of gives that, right? You had co-champions. I don't know if you'd reach a co-champion.
Well, BCS was there to get out of the co-champions. You still had it with.
Well, I guess before BCS,
but you still had co-champions in the
even the BCS. Yeah. It's just also Texas says look at the College World Series. That's the other problem about this too. Is those teams play every day. You can play a game of baseball every day, and you can play 3-game series. Nick Saban, if it was up to him, he would have 2 weeks to prepare for these teams. You have to have at least a week in between, and I like that you guys bring up too the little guy. And I hate bringing up Virginia Tech, but they're a perfect example of this. You're kind of right in the middle. Your revenue on the ACC level, right in the middle. On the Power 5, you're right in the middle. If one of these two conferences don't ask you, do you have to go to a completely different format? Like, is it just the big boys compete for the national championship? There's a middle tier national championship and then FCS. Because teams like that, I mean, you're screwed. What can you do if one of these conferences don't want you? And I assume that the Power 5 will ultimately split into two mega conferences, but then you have the issue. What happens when one season Nebraska plays the toughest teams in the conference, and then the next year they play the easiest? Are you really telling me they're the best representative of that conference? Probably not, because there's going to be, 25 teams on each side?
Yeah.
30?
Scheduling's a mess.
It's a complete disaster.
As far as fairness, it's somewhat of a mess. I don't know how they're going to figure out, because that when we talk about the NFL model, sure, it makes a whole lot of sense, but they are down. I mean, they have somewhere around 30 teams. In college football, we're talking about doubling that.
Right.
And when you play that long of a schedule, things kind of work themselves out. And that's where I wouldn't worry about it too much, is because they do. But you can't go. I think conference championship games are, unless they're used as direct ways to get into the playoff, are a thing of the past, but because it's hard to decide who's going to be in those championship games when you have all these different pods. Again, it just, scheduling's a mess. The way that this is folding down, they're going to have to figure out a fair way to do it. But to be honest, college football has never been fair, and it's just the numbers. You can't really be fair. But when you have a 12-game season, most of the time it has worked out its way that kind of the 3 or 4 best teams at the end, and I think you'll still be able to do that. But as far as on paper making it fair, I don't know if you're
the thing is, scheduling wise, I don't know if you can. Like, what happens when Alabama gets one season scheduled? Clemson, Ohio State, Utah, and LSU. But then Nebraska scheduled Rutgers, Indiana, Maryland.
Well, it's going to be the whole strength of schedule
Colorado
conversation again. Yeah. It's going to be the same conversations. As you guys have been going back and forth, I've kind of stayed out of it, just kind of surfing through Twitter and seeing what's new. This comes from an Oregon beat writer. All right.
Oh, no.
Here we go.
They're the next domino, aren't
well,
they?
they're definitely, everybody in the Pac-12 has a headache right now.
This comes from James Crepia, an Oregon beat writer, covers Pac-12 football as well. University of Oregon spokeswoman responds to request for comments regarding UCLA and USC's move, and asked if he has been in touch with Kevin Warren or anyone else at the Big Ten for Oregon to go to the conference. He replied with nothing to add at this point. Does that not sound like a yes?
No, I wouldn't say it sounds like a yes. I think it's Oregon probably doesn't want to get, because they probably feel screwed in this situation, and you have to be very smart with your next move. It's similar to Kevin Warren. When you're signing this media contract, you got to be really smart. And Oregon, the thing is, Oregon is kind of that interesting team, because I would say they're the best one left outside of Notre Dame, which is in a conference. Out of the teams in a conference that aren't the ACC, out of the Big 12 and the Pac-12, Oregon's the last
I'm not
domino.
sure. I like Oklahoma State a lot.
I do, but not as
Prowess,
much as Phil Knight and Oregon money.
Oregon
Sexiness. Oregon is the last
Oregon.
Domino, I would say, to fall.
I agree.
Sexiness-wise. So you got to be very smart, because the SEC, now that the Big Ten's doing this, it's a free-for-all. I bet you the SEC's probably already in contact with Oregon.
Greg Sankey's,
I bet you right now.
Sankey's going wild
I guarantee it right now. And if you're Oregon, you better make the right move here, because you are probably the last one outside of, like I said, Notre Dame, and then you have the ACC, which could be a complete and total mess and disaster. But I don't blame him for saying that. Who's the highest bidder at this point? Who is Oregon the last domino to fall that decides which one is the mega conference?
Here's the deal. The Big Ten's going to be the one that has more money right now, more money to offer because of the media rights deal. If you had Oregon, you can probably predict right now that the media rights deal with USC, UCLA, and the rest of the Big Ten is probably about $1.3, $1.5 billion. If you had Oregon in there, then you're going up towards $2 billion.
I like how you go from $1 billion to $2 billion with 3 teams. Based on what though, Nick?
Look at the 3 teams.
Yeah, but you have 14 teams to get to 1.5, including Ohio State, Michigan.
I'm sorry that I'm sorry that USC is sexier than Illinois, Bach.
It's not Illinois. I'm just telling you. I'm not sure if your math. I mean, you're just doubled up the media rights revenue based on adding a few.
Would you be
teams.
surprised?
I wouldn't be completely
Everybody's
shocked, but
scrambling.
I wouldn't say those are the numbers necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily say you're the
You were at 1 billion with the 14 teams you have. Now you bring in a team in USC that has all the eyeballs in the country on them this year and for years to go. Years to come, while Lincoln Riley is there, you have UCLA, which you're in the biggest,
Rose Bowl.
You're in one of the largest markets in the country in Los Angeles, and you go out and get Oregon. That's the top three of the top teams in the Pac-12.
Yeah, no doubt. I get that. I'm just
And
saying. I don't know
everybody,
if
Amazon,
this means you're right to
Fox.
double.
Well, Fox is happy as can be right now because they got the Big Ten locked up right now. They're a minority owner of the Big Ten network, all that. But you sit here, and if you're Amazon, you're NBC, you're CBS, you're freaking out because you're trying to get the Big Ten because you know ESPN has the SEC locked up. So people are going to be asking astronomical numbers. You forget that also with the Big Ten, with Kevin Warren, they have 2 Fox executives helping them out, trying to make sure that they get a fair contract. So the Fox executives are going to be like, yo, you're going to be able to strong arm Amazon to give you more money. It was already at 1 billion before any of this.
I just don't know if you go up to 2 billion. That's a big jump.
If they get Oregon and one other team,
you're going 2 billion.
I'm going close to 2 billion.
Give me 3.
I'm just telling you, I think it's going to be a lot higher than people realize. I think it's because
it definitely is helped by today's moves.
I seriously think that it's going to be a lot higher than people think.
Yeah, I mean it's just crazy. We'll take a quick break here on the Ticket Water Cooler. On the Block will be up here in about 15 minutes. So we'll get Strick's thoughts on all this stuff. As we don't really have a rundown. You don't really need one today. We're just going to keep talking about this conference realignment. There's so many different ways to look at it. We'll continue that next, coming up here on the Ticket Water Cooler. Jake Bachman here, and I want to tell you about my friends at Solarion. We're always trying to grow and try new things in life, and maybe this year is a chance to learn about how you can participate in a research study with Solarion. I've helped with their studies for many years and keep going back for many reasons. First off, the staff always treats me well, and they're really knowledgeable and informative, which gives me the comfort to keep going back. And it's up to you on how frequently you participate. Whether you're male or female, if you're at least 19 years of age, you may be eligible. If you're curious about how to earn up to $500 per day by participating in a research study at Solarion, check them out at helpresearch.com/new or call them at 866-213-2965. Once again, that's Solarion at 866-213-2965 or at helpresearch.com/new.
Hey, Steve. Welcome to Great Clips.
Great Clips asks, what's the difference between good and great?
Come on back and have a seat.
Good asks you what haircut you'd like.
I have all your details from last time.
Would you like the same haircut today?
Great already knows. With Clip Notes, we save your haircut details so you can get the same thing as last time, every time. Download our online check-in app today. Great Clips. It's gonna be great.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric ensures our home and office HVAC systems run smoothly throughout the year to provide maximum comfort and convenience. Routine maintenance reduced our operating costs just by improving the efficiency of our unit. Consider a maintenance agreement to ensure you too receive priority for services and scheduling. This helps meet manufacturer warranty requirements. Action delivers honest quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
Herrick Services takes this time to wish everyone a happy and healthy 4th of July weekend. We are thankful for this great nation and celebrate our independence, which should never be taken for granted. This important message comes to you from Bart, Mike, and the folks at Herrick Services, your vending specialists here in Lincoln. Their quality service and expertise has earned them a fine reputation. That's Herrick Services, on the air because they care.
Don't wait for the Lincoln fireworks stands to open up. Get the good stuff now at Roca Crazy Cracker in downtown Roca. Stop in through July 4th for the hotspot for rockets and more this Independence Day. Open 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day. Roca Crazy Cracker fireworks in downtown Roca.
Springtime is here, and it's time to get to work on outdoor projects. Deck City is a great place to start as Lincoln's local source for everything decks. Deck City has everything you need to build the deck of your dreams, from treated lumber to Westbury aluminum railings and TimberTech composite decking. Call them today to schedule an appointment at 402-480-6671. Go online at DeckCityNE.com or visit their new location just north of 33rd and Cornhusker Highway.
Working at Continental in Lincoln isn't a job, it's a career. And right now they've raised wages again and they're hiring for production operators at $22.07 per hour and other select jobs starting at $23.77 per hour, with wages growing up to $29.71 per hour. Continental also has salary jobs available and great benefits, plus medical and prescription costs at very low premiums. Dental, vision, and life insurance are offered at no premium cost to the associates. To learn more or to apply, go to continental-jobs.com with keyword Lincoln. Come work at Continental today.
There's nothing quite like the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese beef. The Mercado offers unique ingredients you can't find anywhere else, open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The full-service butcher shop and retail store is wonderful for meat lovers with their exclusive Certified Piedmontese beef and assorted sausages, plus other quality meats, including pork, chicken, and a wide range of the freshest seafood. Plus, every Friday from 11 to 2, the Mercado serves up the best lunch in town on their Friday Feast menu. Stop in at the Mercado today at 84th and Havelock or visit their website at cpmercado.com to see current deals.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Sponsored by Security First Bank, a relationship you can count on.
Another scorcher on the way here for our Thursday as we'll see an afternoon high of 97. Southwest winds at around 15 to 20. Showers and thunderstorms expected to move into the area very late tonight with a low of around 65. Tomorrow, cooler, much more comfortable with a high of around 83. I'm meteorologist Tim Wright for 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Back to the Ticket Water Cooler. Brought to you by Culligan of Lincoln on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
The only thing that's more of a clown show right now than the NCAA is probably Kevin Durant and his pursuit to play somewhere else. So today, Kevin Durant also buried in all this USC-UCLA news, at least locally, is that Kevin Durant has requested a trade from the Nets. The latest to come out on this is that KD and Kyrie still want to play together, but not in Brooklyn. So, yeah, all the other NBA teams clamoring to get the unstoppable duo of KD and Kyrie. I guess it's a possibility. They still want it to happen. Brooklyn, meanwhile, will have had KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, and less than a year later, we'll end up with Ben Simmons. So that's kind of where things are sitting.
I like that, Bob. That was pretty good right there.
What do you guys think about the KD thing quickly?
Who knows? Where do they go? The Knicks?
They're saying the Suns, the 76ers are in. The Suns, the Heat, and the 76ers.
Good for Chris Paul.
I saw that.
Get his ring after
so KD wanted to go to LA.
With LeBron?
He wanted to go to the Lakers, but then the GM said that he would not trade Talen Horton-Tucker. So KD dropped out. They wanted Talen Horton-Tucker in the deal. And they said, no, we're not trading Horton-Tucker. And so they are out of the KD.
We don't need Kevin Durant.
We have Talen Horton-Tucker.
We have THT, baby. Let's go.
That's just that's another thing that's kind of fun to follow today. But of course, if you missed it, UCLA and USC all but are coming to the Big Ten. It's not finalized quite yet, but they've made the move. They actually reached out to the Big Ten to try to get this move done. We've talked about all the different ramifications that it's kind of had. As we come off baseball season, what do you guys think about? I mean, UCLA, USC baseball, obviously major brands. It's kind of funny when I talked to Mark, is that he was thinking kind of back to Nebraska coming over to the Big Ten, basically saying it'll eat you alive, and that your baseball program will drop to the Big Ten's level instead of you elevating the Big Ten up to your level. And maybe that's a concern for the baseball teams coming in. But I mean that's kind of yet to be seen. But at least for Big Ten baseball, it's huge.
Yeah, is it though? Or if you're USC, are you like, all right, well, throw even more money at football because you just don't care as much? I think the most interesting aspect out of all of this isn't as much baseball as it is basketball, because the Big Ten, in all of its glory, I would say, is far superior than the SEC in basketball. So is that going to have any type of impact on decisions like a Kansas or a Baylor? And that's where my argument came in, is maybe that helps the ACC out. I don't know if ultimately at the end of the day it'll keep them alive as a conference, but if you're just throwing anything at the wall and seeing if it sticks, getting Kansas and Baylor basketball has to at least help, right?
For what it's worth, I think the ACC, if there is a third major conference of basically the leftovers, the ACC is in the best position other than the Big 12 and the Pac-12 to be the standing conference.
Hold on. What if the Pac-12 and the Big 12 just merge?
I still think you'd have the ACC just because of location. Because there is a part of yes, it doesn't matter as much as it does when you come to matchups, but the Atlantic Coast Conference is football-wise, basketball-wise.
Say the ACC.
The ACC, basketball and football-wise, is going to draw a lot more eyes. There's a lot more money in it because that's the thing that hurt the Pac-12 in the past, is that you have these teams on the West Coast. Fans don't care. That was the problem with USC, is USC was dominant there for a while. Everyone else, I mean, who really cares about Pac-12?
But their games felt really regional. One, because they're playing when everybody else is going to bed. But the other thing is there's just not the care factor. So
exactly
when USC is playing Arizona or Washington State or even Cal, or it just feels very regional. Now it's with these brands coming all the way across the country, but playing the Wisconsins and the Penn States and the Michigans and even Michigan States. It's obviously it goes beyond regional, certainly, and so it's going to kind of have this national brand to it. The other thing that I wanted to mention too is that the Big Ten has always been in good standing, based on their TV contracts and the amount of blue bloods and all that stuff that they had put together. But before USC joining the Big Ten, I don't think there's anybody else in the conference with a ceiling that Ohio State has. Now USC, I think, has that ceiling. And so I think that this is very intriguing in both the terms that Ohio State, you're no longer in fear that Ohio State might leave the Big Ten to the SEC, because that you could just get to one major conference through that route. But also just
you have Michigan too.
Yeah, on the field, I just think that now you have a team that can actually, because that's what the Big Ten is who else is going to compete with Ohio State this year. Now down the line, it could be USC and Ohio State kind of leading, kind of being the teams with the highest ceiling.
I have a couple things of news for you guys. On Twitter, Heather Dinich from ESPN being told that Notre Dame is going to be withdrawing from the ACC. You forget, Notre Dame's contractually obligated that if they're to join a conference, it has to be the ACC. That Notre Dame is to withdraw from the ACC. It will play football wherever it wants, and it will have to pay the exit fee and the grant of rights fee for its other sports. So they sounds like they're going to be getting out of that exit fee.
They're independent again?
So they're going to be fully independent, but then they're joining either the Big 12.
Are they going to join a conference?
Is this a report? Is this if they do or they are?
She says that a source told her that Notre Dame will be paying the exit fee and withdrawing from the ACC.
Wow. So that means Notre Dame's on the move, either the SEC or the Big Ten.
As of right now, that's from her source.
Yeah.
Here's another one.
Wow. It would be the Big Ten.
It
has to be the Big Ten. It's not going to be the SEC.
This comes from a Washington football beat writer, Dave Mahler. What I'm hearing, unless the Pac-12 invites 2 new members and gives them incredible concessions and a bigger piece of the pie than the 10 remaining schools, the conference is dead. The remaining 10 will splinter off.
Splinter off into the other conferences.
Into Big Ten ACC or Big Ten SEC.
Oh, that's not no action plumbing. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know how long we're going to wait to kind of see the ramifications of this. But if Notre Dame is
Colorado, give them to the Big Ten.
If Notre Dame is in the Big Ten,
can we talk about $2 billion media rights deal?
There we go. Yeah,
there
Notre Dame in there.
Then you could talk. Well, the thing is, now if Notre Dame jumps, I would not be surprised to see Clemson follow. If Notre Dame leaves in Clemson, that's what hurts all of this. If Clemson jumps, we're talking about college football as soon as 2026. It's done. It's over.
Here's
it's
what's
a complete free for all. It is 2 conferences. Clemson is the only thing holding the ACC together.
Here's from Brett McMurphy. Big 12 is aggressively looking to add Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah.
I bet they are.
Yeah, what is that? Come on.
The Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-12, Pac-10 now
How many-
all need to try to add whoever they want to, but they're almost just delaying.
How many
Unbelievable.
teams? How many teams have given you in the Big 12? 20? Because they just added 4.
Yeah.
And then you're going to add another 4? That's 20 teams. What are we doing?
That's the super conferences. They want to be one themselves.
This is unreal. What is the state?
Crazy stuff going on now, but that'll wrap it up for the Ticket Water Cooler. We'll get Strick in here and get his thoughts on the latest breaking news here on 93.7 The Ticket. We'll talk with you here in just a second.